Welcome everyone to episode 80 of the Circle Back podcast, the show where three great friends get together and just talk about video games. I'm Dan LaMarca. As always, I am joined by Dan Dufresnoy.
Hey everybody, how you guys doing?
And Shelby White.
Howdy, howdy. How we doing?
Doing okay. We are telecommuting today.
I miss you guys' beautiful faces.
Yeah, due to coronavirus issues, we are in separate homes, so apologies for the audio quality, but I think all things considered, this is pretty darn good. We got a pretty decent setup going.
This just shows our dedication, you know?
Exactly.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Also, all the time we have off to play all these games, honestly.
Yeah, well, for most of us. I still work my regular schedule.
Sure. No, Dan, you're the real hero, honestly. You know, you're really taking care of people. I mean that.
Well, I'll do what I can. So since we last were here recording, a ton of new games have come out. And I remember on the last episode, I was like, I played a little bit of a lot of stuff. And this is like the opposite. I played a lot of stuff. So I have like a shitload of games to talk about.
Awesome.
There are three big ones that have come out since we last recorded. That's Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Doom Eternal. So those three we're going to save for last. So let's get through some of the other stuff. Dan, I know that you've been playing Kentucky Route Zero. I heard, my sources have been telling me that you actually finished that game.
I finished that game, Dan, and
so
Shelby.
Talk to me about it.
Oh my gosh, it was absolutely amazing. When you recommended it to me, I got it, and I was enjoying the first part, and I'm not gonna lie, I got to the point where I don't know, I felt like it was sort of like, it was kind of it's one of those games that sort of takes its time, and that's the appeal to it. But I guess I don't know. For me, I was starting to feel a little tedious, honestly. And I said, you know what? I just gotta barrel through, and I'm so glad that I did, because by the end of Act 4. And the entirety of Act 5. I can't remember another video game that had such an emotional wallop that I've played in recent memory. I mean, maybe other than, Outer Wilds. Holy moly. By the end of the game, I completely... Any sort of feelings that I had of tediousness or any sort of, it was a slog to play, it completely went away. And it's became one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely love it. The payoff is totally worth it. It reminds me of I know we like movies, so it reminds me of like a Tarkovsky movie in that way, where it's very slow, it's very methodical. You don't really get questions. I mean, you don't really get answers to the questions that you have. It kind of just creates more questions. But man, by the end, I feel like I don't know. I feel like my soul changed a little bit.
Wow, so you liked it that much, huh?
And it's one of those things too. I recommended it to a few people, and it seems like the questions I get are, why did this character just disappear? Does this character ever come back? This and that, and I don't know. It just kind of makes me realize that the beauty is not in like answering the questions or even getting any sort of closure. It's just sort of like what you do with the events that have happened, And I'm telling you, man, by the end, I was an emotional. I was an emotional Dan, just hanging out.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't want to give too much away, because I know the 5th chapter, it's still this year, so if anybody plays it, but it ties... It doesn't that you might have, but it ties it up so perfectly in the themes that it's trying to get to, this sort of, David Lynchian Wizard of Oz story,
Mm-hmm. Well, talk about... give me an idea of like how you feel about individual chapters. Do you think there's like low points, high points? Did you think Act 5 is like a good conclusion? How are you feeling about the game overall? We don't have to talk spoilers, but...
Right, so the first chapter really hooked me. You get these weird cast of characters, these sort of loners that each have their own, issues. There's things that they're running from or things that they're trying to find. And, it was incredible. And I think in the second chapter, Junebug, and she's awesome. And, you just start to meet these characters. You meet the little boy. His name is escaping me right now. But, and and you get to, you meet all these characters. So the first two chapters really pulled me in. It really got me. I really like these characters. I want to see these guys
Ezra.
tell stories through. Ezra, thank
It
you.
just came to me. Sorry.
Thank you. And it's just sort of it pulls you into it. Every one of these characters I became so invested in their personal journeys. Ezra lost his family, so he's looking for his family. Conway's delivery. Shannon, was it Shannon? His
Yeah. Yep.
Shannon. She's looking for, I think, her sister, I believe, who's a ghost. And you just start to become really invested in these characters and become invested in their journey. So I really wanted to get that sort of conclusion, that sort of that they're looking for. And by the third chapter, maybe fourth chapter, it didn't seem like there was really going to be any sort of closure. So I think my feelings started to kind of drift, where I started to feel like nothing that I'm wondering about is getting answered. I started to feel, but I guess I started to feel let down. I was just sort of like, none of these questions that I have, none of these things that I'm trying to, get to are popping up. But by the end of the fourth chapter, I'm not going to say who, but a character that you really care about just is gone. And and again, that just adds to the feeling of there's no closure. What the heck's happening? But by the fifth chapter was one of the most beautiful endings in video game history, and I'll
so
stand
you
behind
Act 5 a lot.
I love it's you go to this town where you're searching for this entire time, and there's a funeral there for two horses. I don't think that's given too much away, but it parallels your journey and your feelings towards these, and the ultimate feeling of loneliness and not getting the closure that you need, but sort of accepting your past and kind of gesture. And it completely hit me right in the gut. By the time I got to chapter 5, I felt kind of, all right, I need this game to just be over. And then while I was feeling like that, it was like the Hulk came in and just like punched me in the gut, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. So
Cool.
It's definitely worth going through. It's definitely not for everybody, and even me, who's into that sort of thing, I've even found myself kind of getting kind of bored. But by the end of it, I realized how special it was, and why it needed to be the way that it is. Very much in the way of like a Tarkovsky movie. Tarkovsky movies, 3-hour movies. You don't know what's going on half the time until the end, and you're like, that's what this is about. I feel the same way with Kentucky Route Zero.
Right, and it's I talked about it before. It's like a very literary feeling game, right? It's like,
oh yeah, you're writing.
It feels like, but it feels like a big novel, So it's like you have to kind of know that going in, and that's why a lot of people, I'm sure, bounce off of it. But if this is something you're into, I think it absolutely nails it.
It's totally worth the journey, and I absolutely loved it. And it's seriously one of, I gotta reevaluate its place on my my list of all time games, but definitely I see it sneaking in the top 50 for sure. It was incredible.
Cool. All right. I also heard that Fire Emblem Three Houses, you completed it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm hogging the microphone. Me and my sister, we finally beat Fire Emblem Three Houses. I think that came out August of last year. By that point, it was already one of my favorite games of 2019. Anyway, we finally got to the end. We did the Blue Lions route, the Blue Lions route, and we beat Edelgard. And I'm telling you, man, I know you like Edelgard, but in our route, man, she's just like evil. She's just like, she turns into like this weird demonic thing, and you just really can't stand her. So I'm curious how the other routes paint these different characters, and I think what makes this game so great is it gives you that sort of it's like an appetizer, like, ooh, like, go try out this route because there's probably things that you don't know about. So yeah, it's awesome, man. I loved it. yeah, that's it. My
Cool.
feeling, getting to the conclusion didn't really add any feelings I had towards it that I've already, that I haven't already said. But yeah, man, it was awesome.
All right. So that's Fire Emblem Three Houses. Finally through it. Shelby, I heard you've been dipping back into one of the older Xbox 360 games. You starting Gears of War from the beginning?
You know what? I see that they're all on Xbox Game Pass, so I'm like going back. I wanted to play something in the beginning of the year. I always go back to like old games that I either missed from last year or older games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have a lot of time to play, so I was like, all right, let me pick up an old game. I'll play for like half an hour at a time. Dipped into the first Gears of War, but what I did is instead of like the 360 version, I downloaded it's the Ultimate Edition version.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a remaster of the first game.
Right.
Which I believe it has I think it's like a few extra levels or something along with updated visuals. And it was great. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I mean, it's definitely dated, but I can appreciate it because I know it was a first of its kind, like the duck and cover system.
Right.
Well, like it was a first of its kind. So as I'm playing it, I'm like, all right, I've done this before, I've felt this before, but I know that this was the first time it happened. So it didn't detract from the game or anything at all for me in that sense. But yeah, I played it like a half hour every night for like 2 weeks, and it's not that long. I think it's like a 8-hour game or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And it was great. I really enjoyed it. I mean, is it the perfect game? No, but I definitely enjoyed the hell out of it. Like sometimes you just need that mindless shooting the shit out of stuff kind of game, So I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. I really enjoyed those games when they first came out. I haven't been that into the more recent ones, but it's just because it's kind of a like dated feeling game.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, it's still a great game, and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, so like after I beat that first one, I was like, you know what? Before any of these get taken off, I just downloaded the lot, like 2, 3. I think they have 2, 3, 4, 5, and then somewhere in between there's another one, Judgment, Gears of War Judgment, or something like that. So I downloaded the rest of them just in case.
Yeah, I think most people would say skip Judgment and play the rest.
That's what I've heard.
But
yeah, but it was there, so I figured why not.
Yeah, totally. Dan, I just want to say, you and Shelby are using the same microphone.
Okay.
So I don't know if it is your internet connection or if you're playing with the wires when you're talking, something like that. But I'm getting a lot more crackling out of you during certain points. So if you can just make sure.
Maybe I'm just going too close to the mic. Yeah, I'm not moving anywhere. I just get excited. So maybe. Maybe that's what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it can't be helped, it can't be helped. Obviously,
it could
under
be a
these
matter
circumstances.
it could be a matter of Wi-Fi or something like that.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, it could be anything. But yeah, just throwing it out there. Make sure all those connections are solid.
Everything's looking good.
I'll talk a little bit about a couple of these games that I've been playing before we get into the big ones. I'll start with Roundguard. Roundguard came out about a week ago on Apple Arcade and Switch, I believe. And it's basically, you guys know what Peggle is?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
So it's basically Peggle, but a roguelike. And it's really cool. It's like very Dicey Dungeons feeling of, like a small little roguelite with, interesting different mechanics. This basically is like you have 3 different classes. You have a warrior, a rogue, and a wizard. And each of them has their own abilities that you either tap the right side or the left side of the screen. And as you're bouncing around, and there are pegs that give you gold, and there are pegs that just like block the areas, and then there are pegs that are enemies. So you're literally like trying to hit the enemies pegs, and once you kill them all, then that's the end of the level, and you go through, depending on what hole you fall through, like at the end of a Peggle level, you go to a different route down the, your FTO or Slay the Spire looking map of the dungeon. And what you're doing, what's really cool is like you have an attack power based on your weapon, and you have a certain amount of health. and each time you hit an enemy, you deal damage to it, and it deals damage to you. So that's when your like abilities come in. Is if you are like, you can tap your ability so that you can like shoot an arrow or do something that won't have you physically hit the enemy, therefore you won't take damage. So you're kind of like balancing, all right, how much damage do I want to take? And then some of the pegs are like health, potions or magic potions that refill your ability meter or whatever.
Okay.
And it's just a really neat, really fun game. I think it's really well made, well designed. I don't much care for the art, the way that it looks, but that's kind of like a personal thing. And I think the music is kind of lackluster. But the loop of going through on runs has been super, super fun. It's definitely a game that I would recommend, and it works great on phones. It's just a cool little thing. Like I'm super happy with the way it came out.
That's awesome, man. Cool.
Yeah, and again, that's called Roundguard. So check it out if you're interested, if that sounds like something you'd be into. Obviously not for everybody, but if you like roguelikes, if you're interested in that sort of game, I think this one's actually really good.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, it's neat. One of the other games I've been playing is called Murder by Numbers. And this game is...
That's dangerous.
It's Phoenix Wright meets Picross. So it's like, it's very obviously inspired by Phoenix Wright, where literally like the same sound effects happen and like very similar music. I think it's the same like musician that did the Phoenix Wright stuff or something. But it's like that visual novel-esque, you're kind of walking around talking to people. And it goes, puts each person on one side of the screen and the dialogue goes back and forth and you're choosing what you're doing. But every time you look at something in the environment, so you might like, basically the very beginning of the game, you are I should go back. You are a actress named Honor Mizrahi, and she is like one of the co-stars on this very popular like 90s like crime show. So it's called like Murder Mystery, and it's like this detective and her partner, whatever. And right in the beginning, you find out that your show is getting you're getting written out of the show in the next season, and you're like, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. And you couldn't believe that your boss did this to you. You have like a personal relationship with him, and he's like, it's out of my hands. I'm sorry. You leave the office and you go back in because you forgot something, and your boss is dead. And so like that's where it kind of kicks off. When you get to the parking lot, you realize you left your keys in there. This little robot guy named Scout. It's like an acronym for something funny. But this guy Scout basically like stumbles into you. And he's like, oh, can you help me? I don't know where I am. I don't know how I got here. He basically stumbled out of like a junkyard and is trying to figure out like who he is and what he's meant for. So you and Scout end up being like the detective duo. And so what you're doing is when you have a static screen like in a Phoenix Wright game, and you're kind of pixel hunting as Scout. And it'll like beep as you get closer to something, and then you'll zoom in and you do a Picross puzzle. And if you don't know what Picross is, it's like the one where it's like a grid, like picture a 10 by 10 grid, for example. And then it tells you like how, it's hard to describe, but it tells you like how many tiles need to be filled in what order. So if it's like, if you're looking at one of the rows and it says 4, 4, 1, right? That means you have to fill in 4 tiles, space, 4 tiles, space, and then 1. So I know that'd be 11, but I'm just giving you an example. So you're kind of like, it's like a Sudoku adjacent kind of thing, but it's not numbers. It's more like filling in and leaving spaces blank. And usually what you do is like it ends up making a picture based on where the blanks and where the filled in parts are. This is like a very popular like Nintendo franchise from like the DS and stuff like that. But I am like terrible at Picross, but I've been getting better and better as I'm playing this game because I think like the writing is really, really good. I love the characters, love the art. It's just like an awesome, really fun, silly murder mystery thing. And it does a good job balancing of like serious things that are going on and then stupid jokes. And Scout is like, he like doesn't remember anything, so Honor like, you know, takes him home and like he reads all of her detective novels and watches a bunch of movies, so he's like always quoting stuff and like it's just awesome. Like,
sounds good.
Scout is like the best character, and the way the story's written and everything, it's just honestly a really, really great game. I think right now it's only on Steam and Switch. But if any of this sounds interesting, I really recommend it. It's a really, really great game. I think it's $15 or $20, and I think it'd be great on Switch. I'm playing on Steam, but you know, you can use your finger to fill in the spaces on Switch, I assume. So that could be cool.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I mean, I can't recommend it enough. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, and it's long. I think I put in like 10 or so hours, 10 or 12 hours, and it's been really, really good.
Nice.
So that's Murder by Numbers.
Numbers.
Definitely recommend it. And yeah, I mean, there's some really great moments and character moments that I'm excited to talk about later in the year.
It's great, man.
Yeah,
totally.
It's neat. Next one and the last one before we get into the big three is Yes, Your Grace. Have either of you guys heard of Yes, Your Grace?
I have not.
Can't say I have.
Yes, Your Grace is an interesting style of game. It's basically you are this king, and the opening scene is you basically, it looks like your castle's under siege. You're at, you know, on your last rope, and there's like a deserter of your army, and your general is like, Your Grace, what should we do with him? If we let him go, you know, it might encourage others to you know, desert as well. But at the same time, we don't have that many men to fight. So if we can put a sword back in his hand and then make him fight, then that would be good. And then you make the decision whether to kill him to make an example or to put him back out there and encourage him. So you do that, and then you go up to the top of the wall and you give this speech about how, you know, you fought along these men for so long, and, you know, like we can't lie down, we have to go out fighting, whatever. And then it cuts and it says 1 year previous, and you jump back, and the gameplay loop is basically there's a couple layers to it, but the main layer is you're the king sitting on his throne, right? And your townspeople, various townspeople, will come in and line up at the throne to make requests. So someone will say, I have a wedding, my daughter's getting married, and I'm expected to, you know, host it, but we don't have any money or food. Can I get either 5 gold or 5 supplies to help, you know, make this a really good wedding that the whole town will remember, or whatever. You have a certain amount of gold and supplies that you gain and lose each week depending on your choices and taxes and yada yada. So you're kind of making decisions that have 2 different layers of impact. Number one, like I said, you'll lose gold if you give it away. You'll gain gold. Maybe you make an investment in somebody that said they're going to make an inn. They come back and share profits with you if it's successful, something like that, right? But it's also, the other layer is the personal interaction with these specific people, because a lot of this game is choices that come back to bite you or come back to reward you. So early on in the game, your daughters are like arguing, and you're like talking to one of them and saying like, hey, you know, what's going on with you? Why are you so, you're not acting like yourself lately? And she's like, well, I just turned 13, and I'm sure you're about to ship me off to marry me to somebody that I don't even know, just for you know, the kingdom's gain, whatever. And you're like, oh, of course you have a say in it. This isn't how it is, blah, blah, blah. But then the time comes where it seems like you don't have a choice. And if you want to save your people, you're going to have to marry her off to some prince in order to get the king's army, right? So you're kind of balancing. It feels like a spinning plates game where you're like, I want to make my people happy, but I also need to save my money and need to save my supplies and this and that. So it's a really interesting balance. I think the choices are very well done, and they carry like a pretty good emotional arc to them. They feel weighty. A lot of times it's like, oh man, I don't know what I want to do here. I feel bad, but I might have to do this for the betterment of the entire people, like that kind of stuff. I think when they choose to do the strategic, there are certain times where the gameplay kind of switches to like the strategic thing. It's only a couple times in the game. I've beaten this game. And I think it's not great. It's not like fully fleshed out. But I think overall, like the game itself with the way it like moves between, because there's a lot of really funny moments and a lot of dramatic moments, and it's great most of the time, and it's weird like once in a while where you're like, whoa, that was a weird tonal shift. Like, I don't know if that one works, but a lot of times they do a really good job of going back and forth. And in the end, I found myself like thinking very, very fondly on this game and being like, wow, that was a really awesome, like 6 or 7 hours. Just like a really cool experience. Great choices. The characters are good. This type of game, there's only a few types of games that I would say are like this. I think of like the Banner Saga kind of like, those kind of games that are like, hey, you're going to make choices and, you're going to lose people well, and you're gonna have to make the hard choices. I think that this one feels a lot like those in the good ways and the bad ways. So the bad ways are like, that felt kind of random, that my choice here felt very inconsequential, and then someone died because of it or something like that. So it's like, it can feel like, oh, I didn't even know that would happen.
Right.
But is that good or bad? I don't know. Like, that's just kind of how these games work.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's a really, really good version of this. The 2D pixel art is really, really good. It looks like a 2D side-scrolling looking, very highly pixelated. I think of like Sword and Sorcery, like games that are like, not a lot of detail on the sprites, more like true 8-bit pixel art looking. And it's beautiful. The music when it kicks in is pretty good. I just think that it's a really good game overall.
Great, man.
Nice.
And what system was that for?
I believe that game is just on PC right now. If one of you can Google that, just to check. I could check too. I was just wondering.
What was the name?
Yes, Your Grace.
Yes, Your Grace. That's right.
And it's good. There ends up being this mechanic where you're sending out for allies to bring you, like, each person that you get to be one of your allies ends up basically giving you a certain number of soldiers in the upcoming war, along with like a little benefit here and there. So it might be like, oh, you get 2 extra gold a week if this guy's your ally. But a lot of times they butt against each other. So it's like, I won't be your ally if this guy's your ally because of such and such, and then you have to make the choice, and things play out from there. So it's just really, really cool. Did you find it? Is it just PC?
It's Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows, so PC as well.
I didn't know that.
I'm actually looking at it now. I think this is on Game Pass. Yes, Your Grace.
Really?
I believe so. I gotta.
Interesting.
I'd have to double check, but I feel like I've seen this before.
This is a game that I would definitely recommend you guys play. I think it's really, really good. And like I said, it's not too much of an investment. I think it's about 6-7 hours max. and it's just good. The writing's good. The choices are good. I love the characters.
I'll have to give that a go.
Yeah, I think you should give it a try. I know we have a lot we're playing right now, but Yes, Your Grace is one of the best early surprises for me this year.
Man. Thanks for letting us know about it.
Yeah. The big three. Which one do we want to dive into first?
I've only played Ori and
Animal Crossing. And
so
I played all three. So why don't we do Doom first then? Because then we can dig into the other two. Shelby, you haven't tried Ori?
I have not.
Okay, because that one is on Game Pass. So
I did see it. Yeah, I saw that one. I do have Animal Crossing, but I played like a day. You know, okay. I know it's like real time stuff, so it's It's not like you can breeze through the game. So I'm a day in.
Okay.
It's okay. Me too, Shelby. Me too.
All right.
All right. Let's talk about Doom first, then, and then we'll dig into Animal Crossing. All right, Doom Eternal. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of Doom 2016. I think it's one of the best first-person shooter campaigns ever. I love it. I think it's great. Doom Eternal feels incredible to play, just as I expected. It feels just as good, if not better, than Doom 2016.
Nice.
I'm playing it on PC. It runs incredibly smoothly, looks amazing. It's gorgeous, super fun to play, great.
Heavy metal,
big time. Here's my issue with it. It feels like, you ever watch a movie that's like a little campy, little B movie, and you're like, man, this is awesome, but I don't know how much they meant, like how much of the stuff that's hitting for me was intended. That's what Doom 2016 was, where it's like, I wanted to believe that they really knew that they were nailing it. Like, you know, Dan, I played that first opening mission with you, and that opening scene where the Doom guy comes out of the sarcophagus and there are these people like praying beside him, like to summon him. It's just so ridiculous. And it's like cool in the way that like heavy metal covers are cool. Like they're cheesy.
It looks like an Iron Maiden cover. But
the reason that shit is cool is because you could be like, man, that's awesome and so ridiculous. Like at the same time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
This game has that in the art, but the story itself feels less of like a campy B movie and more of just like a shitty by the numbers action movie. And I don't think that's like a make or break thing with this game, but it is something that obviously needs to get talked about. I have played 3 to 4 hours so far. It only came out a couple days ago, and I've been playing Animal Crossing as well. So it's obviously is not my final, how I feel about it, but it definitely, it still scratches that itch where the combat arenas are amazing. The platforming around to find secrets, I find that super satisfying. I loved it in the first game. It feels just as good in this game. The new abilities feel really good. Like there's a lot that I'm loving. I just really feel like they fundamentally did not understand what made that first game so much fun. Like in the story, I'm saying. Like it was like a fun, like you'd be like, man, this is like a lovable, like, shitty, stupid thing that's so awesome. And this one feels like it's instead of like, well, it's kind of like instead of like riffing on Gears of War and saying like, man, remember Gears of War? How dumb was that? This feels like, remember Gears of War? Yeah, we really like that too. And I'm not saying like there isn't a place for that, but it feels more like by the numbers action. Like they're trying to tell a story, and it seems like it's just not compelling at all.
Is it like a Death Stranding situation where like it's taking itself too seriously?
I don't think so. No, nothing like that. Because it's still goofy. It's just it feels like they're trying to have like an actual through line of like a story with characters and stuff.
Right.
When it's like, this isn't Wolfenstein, where Wolfenstein is doing it well. Remember, like we played Wolfenstein,
Oh, yeah, the narrative
and we're
is
like,
incredible.
oh, this narrative is great. These characters are great. I love this. Like, Doom isn't that, you know? And it's like,
That's also not why you're going to Doom. That's not
right.
You know what I mean? Like that's not what you're expecting from it.
Well, it's because Doom 2016
Or wanting
set the
from it.
bar for what was expected.
Right.
So now it feels weird when they're going for something and not nailing it. You know what I mean? They do have like a home base hub that I actually like a lot. It has like all your collectibles and like certain upgrades. It's like a little hub world that you can like jump around and find some stuff. I'm enjoying that a lot. I think there's like too many upgrade trees, like one or two too many, because there are just, it like hammers you over the head about like, here's this different upgrade tree, here's this one, here's this one, here's this one, and you're like, holy shit, like there's so much going on.
Geared towards like what skill sets, you know, like.
Well, no, it's like you have one that you're, okay, you get certain points, you put it into health, ammo, or armor.
Okay.
And then when you get, basically, there are 2 pips, and in the middle is like a perk. So on one pip on the left, it says like gain, 25 health. On the pip on the right, it says add +5 ammo capacity, whatever. If you get both, in the middle it says like, flame belcher cooldown reduced permanently. So that's one tree, and there's like 8 of them, right? So like you get to say like, oh, I want that ability, so I'm gonna have to get the 2 pips that are attached to that ability.
Right.
Like that's the idea. Another tree is like, here are your suit upgrades. You go through, you get different points for that, and you put them into that. Another one is, oh, here are your gun upgrades, and you get to do, like, there are so many of these that it almost feels like comical, of like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? There's still more. And that, I think, it's something that I'm going to enjoy, especially as the game goes on. It's just like a lot to throw at the player right away. The other thing is I feel that it's like as hard as the end game of Doom 2016. Like it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like a new game. It feels like right where 2016 left off, for better and worse. Like for me, I enjoy that. I'm not like, I think I've died once or twice in the first 3 missions. So it's not like killing me. It's just, it's a lot. Like they throw you right into it. There's a lot going on. So I think that might be tough for new players.
So what you're saying is like if I played it, like it would.
I think it might kick your ass a little bit. Yeah.
Is the story a continuation of what 2016 was? Like, is it right off the back?
Shelby, that's a wonderful question. I wish I had the answer for you because I don't know shit about the story.
Oh, okay.
I just know that they are doing a story here, and they weren't doing much of a story in the other one. The reason the other one was interesting is because there was a story, but it wasn't that consequential. It was more just like for fun. Like it was like, the UAC, it was like hell gone corporate. So it was like all these like, corporate things playing over the loudspeaker of like, if you're a demon, blah, 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 like that kind of stuff. And it's just funny and goofy. Samuel Hayden was the main antagonist. Hayden. Like that's literally what they were going for, and it was hilarious. It was great. This is like, the first cutscene you get. It's like the deserter is here, and it's like you have like an interaction with him, and he's like, "These aren't your people to save, Doomslayer, whatever." And it's like seems like it's taking itself like it wants to have a real narrative instead of being like goofy and ridiculous. That's the shit that I'm talking about, where I'm like, I don't know about this. But that's not going to ruin the game for me, because guess what? Playing it feels incredible, and I actually do really like the platforming. I know some of the major complaints are the first-person platforming, but I've said before, Doom 2016 felt like more of like a Metroid Prime like continuation than a Doom game, you know what I mean? Like it was a lot of platforming, exploration, you know, you need an ability to get up there. Like that's kind of what that game was. And they really go for it in this, where they, at the end of the mission, they open up fast traveling in that area that you just played, and then you're able to go back and get collectibles you missed and stuff like that. And it's really, really fun and satisfying. I mean, you know, still a great game, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm just a little bit disappointed that they, in my opinion, appeared to have misunderstood what the story was doing well and not doing so well.
You're still getting what you wanted out of the game. It's just there's certain things that okay.
Yeah, correct. It's still I'm enjoying it. I think it's a great game. I just Doom 2016 for me is such a high watermark that I wanted them to just one up it again. And it seems like they're going down a little bit in my book. I mean, we'll see when I finish the game, but feels really good. I mean, this kind of shit's to be expected in these kind of games, but they love using this term mortally challenged, and I think it's like a really shitty like it's a funny one-off joke. If that was it, you could say like, all right, that was a shitty joke, but it's over. But they keep saying it, and I'm like, it rubs me the wrong way, calling mortally challenged over and over again. I'm like, you know where you're basing that from, and you don't seem to care, and that kind of sucks. Yeah. And the other thing is, the first big boss I came across, a big fat video pops up and says like, here's this boss, here's how to beat him, and it like shows you his weak point and like it's super weird. Like the more I'm playing it, the more I'm like, I love this game, but what the fuck happened during the design of this game? Like people are just like losing it, and like I feel like they're just missteps along the way that are like, what is this, you know?
Wow.
Like it's just so weird to see a video pop up showing you how to like properly fight this boss. Like,
yeah, that's very odd.
Like just let me fight the boss and then I'll learn it, you know? Like it's really weird. But anyway, I don't want to sound like I'm down on it. My expectations were so high that I feel that it's necessary for me to talk about the things that I'm not liking about it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
But yeah, that's pretty much it on Doom Eternal. Again, 3 to 4 hours. I played the first 3 missions. Really, really enjoyed them so far, and I'll continue to enjoy it, I'm sure.
All right, good.
Man?
Let's talk about Ori, Dan.
I'm very excited to talk about Ori.
Yeah, so it comes with a big caveat for you, though. Number one, I will say right off the bat, I played through this entire game. I beat it. I absolutely love it. It's my game of the year so far. It's an amazing game. I had no issues with it. I played it on PC. Now, Dan, take it away. We'll get the bad out of the way, and then we'll talk about what we like about it.
Okay, I was going to talk about the good because I love this game so much. I love it. I love it so much, and it's the only reason that with all the performance issues that I'm going through, that's a terrible thing. All the performance issues that I'm experiencing, I love it so much and I enjoy it so much that I'm not letting it deter me. And I think it takes a really, really strong game to make me feel that way. Happened like I would normally like, all right, I don't need to play this game. Like I've played enough, it's fine, and I'll just go to the next one. Like this game is that good that it's
right. So what are the performance issues though?
Yeah, so well, I don't know if this first. So I'm playing it on your Xbox again. Thank you for letting me borrow it on Game Pass. And I got first thing that happened was I got through about 3 hours of the game, saved everything, and then the next time I went back into it, it just like up and erased and was gone. What that is, I don't know what caused that. So that was annoying, but I said, you know what, that's fine. I love this game so much. I'm gonna just get back to where I was, and I did. And then it seemed that since that point, what will happen is like mid jump or mid attack, my screen sometimes 5 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds,
and for like 5 or 10.
Yep, but ever froze was about like 20 seconds where I was in the mid jump, and the screen just froze. And I'm just waiting there, and it happens pretty consistently, which is frustrating. I played again last night, and it didn't seem to do it last night, but for a few days there in a row, every time I jumped, every time I did an attack, right before it would hit the enemy, it would freeze. And I had it happen really bad one time. I was fighting the spider boss, and I was having a hard time, and I finally got to it, and I kid you not, it was the last hit. The last hit, and as it goes, as I'm making the attack, froze, and then it crashed.
That's
and then it was
terrible.
So then when I put it in, when I opened Ori up again, I not only lost all my save from the boss, but like everything that happened before that from the last save. And I had to start from scratch again. And very frustrating. It's annoying, but this game is so gosh darn amazing that it's the only thing that's getting me through it and motivating me to keep playing. But yeah, definitely, I said a few bad words in my head.
I am so disheartened to hear that, because that
is so bizarre that's going on.
Yeah, and I heard right at launch people were saying like, wow, there are some really bad performance issues, particularly on an original Xbox One, which is the one that I lent to Dan. I lent it to Dan because we have Game Pass on PC, so there's really no issues at all on the PC. It ran beautifully, not even any slowdown, nothing. So I don't say that to rub it in. I just have to let you know how it is for me. But now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the game itself. First thing that I thought about as I started playing this game was, holy shit, they really like Hollow Knight. Do you agree, Dan?
That's so funny that you said that, because my sister, first time when she walked down to see it, that's the first thing that she said. She said, "Oh, it looks like Hollow Knight with all like the greenery and like the dankness of the swamps and things like that." Like, oh, that's Hollow Knight.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the original Ori is more of like just a platformer, really. Like, it feels like a lot of platforming challenges and like little bits here and there where you're fighting. But this game literally borrows so much from Hollow Knight, where literally the ability slots are like the pins in the Hollow Knight.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you have a certain number that you can equip, and then you can like get more slots to open them up, and you're like picking and choosing your loadout basically. The map maker that you find in the world, yes, you pay, and then he fills out your map. Like, it is insane how much of Hollow Knight DNA is in this game. And I think they took the right lessons from Hollow Knight, because this game feels really, really great. Obviously, it looks amazing, the music's amazing, but that we knew already, because Ori and the Blind Forest looks amazing, sounds amazing. But this game really upped it. It feels like a true like Metroidvania with the combat, and the way it drips out different traversal abilities. Like, it is such a satisfying one of these, where it really, really feels like if Hollow Knight is like, hey, what if a Metroidvania was also Dark Souls? This is, hey, this is just a really good Metroidvania. Like, this gives you the feeling of like a Symphony of the Night, where it's like, I just want to keep playing to get to the next area. Like, you're constantly like, man, I just figured out this way to do this, and I can now bounce up using this new ability. Like, it just feels so good to play, and it's just so impeccably designed. I love this game.
Totally agree, and especially with like the different, and this is like the most satisfying thing about like Metroidvania games, is where you see an area and you're like, oh, I can't get there, and then you learn that move, and the moves are satisfying Like I'm thinking of like the dash move, where you can shoot a projectile and you got to, time it right to then, get yourself like a higher jump. Like I love that stuff so much. It's fantastic. And obviously, the first thing that draws you to it is the visuals, and every frame is just a work of art, as well as like the overarching narrative, which I really appreciate. It's so beautiful but yet so sad, and my game of the year as well. I mean, I haven't played too many, but I'm absolutely loving it. And like I said, for the things that I would normally just say, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, the fact that all that was going on and you still want to get back into it so much is definitely telling.
So I'm actually so I'm not trying to give too much away, but I completed the Luma pools and the boss of the Luma pool. So I'm curious, since I know you beat it, Dan.
Yeah.
How far would you say that I am? Because I know when I look at my, I'm doing a few side quests or whatever, but as far as the main story goes,
it's very clear about what it wants. Once you get to a certain point, it says, all right, now go to these 3 areas and complete them. Like, you basically go to these 3 areas and fight a boss. Like, it tells you that. So you've already done 2 out of the 3, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't gone to the snowy area?
We're not going to the snowy area, but I'm right over there. I know.
So once you do that, then you get to go to the final area, and then there's like a final boss level after that, and that's it. Took me about, I think, 11 and change, just under 12 hours to complete.
Wow. So for the main story, I'm fairly close.
Yeah, I ended up my completion percentage says 97% because I
saw that.
Everything. Like I did absolutely everything. The only things I didn't do because I don't really like them are the races.
Okay.
But this game has like combat arenas that you can complete to get new slots for the abilities I was talking about before. Tons of secrets. I found every single health upgrade, every single energy upgrade, all the different shards I found. Like I just went through this game and just tore through it. I loved every minute of it. Loved the exploration, the hub world with all the characters that you're meeting and stuff. Like just so good.
I've done a few side quests, and the side quests usually just make me sad. So I think,
yeah, that's kind of the theme here.
One too. So I don't know. So it's good to know that if I do the main story, I might be able to finish it.
Yeah, I think so. And for me, I will say the story itself isn't anything revolutionary, nothing you haven't seen before. But there's one moment in particular that you already passed that's like real heart-wrenching gut punch.
God,
That for me, it really hit. And after that, it was just kind of like, okay, we'll go through and, complete the story. And it was fine, but nothing too crazy to write home about. It's more about the characters and just like, getting to know them and stuff like that. But yeah, the platforming, the exploration, it feels so good.
It's amazing, and like I said, I'm absolutely loving it. Seriously, best game of the year right now for sure. Yeah. If you have Game Pass, I would definitely give it the go.
Oh yeah.
If you're into Metroidvania games, it's definitely one of the best of them.
Absolutely. So. It's a fantastic game. Yeah, Shelby, you should definitely check it out since it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, definitely will. I know they have both of them up there now. I loved Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yeah. Ori and the Blind Forest is such a good game, and this game is just so much better in like every way. It's so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's excellent. Last game, if there's nothing else to add, last game we have is Animal Crossing New Horizons.
That's right.
So we're all playing it. You guys have played one day each. I have been insane about it, and I started it at midnight when it came out. So I was able to. I have Blathers there with his museum. I have a bunch of stuff going on that I won't spoil too much.
Well, I'm awaiting Blathers. I haven't played today, but he should be here today.
So yeah, so Blathers first comes in a little tent, and then you got to keep donating stuff, and then he'll upgrade to the actual museum.
Right.
That's from the first game, right? That's like a hark back to the first game, right? That's like
Blathers, the museum has been in all of them.
You've been in all of them? Okay.
I know, Dan, this is your first Animal Crossing?
It's Animal Crossing. Can you
Shelby, have you played one before?
This is my first Animal Crossing.
Oh, look at you guys. I've played most of them. This one in particular, I'll talk a little bit about my perspective of having played most of them. The opening hours are awesome because I started at midnight, and usually in these games, because they run on real-time clocks and real-time seasons,
It's so crazy.
So usually if you jump in at midnight, you have nothing to do. Everyone's asleep, the store's closed, yada yada. This game, because Tom Nook's little tent is open 24 hours, it really allows you to get the ball rolling as much as you want to. I love the Nook Miles idea. The implementation of it, I think, is fantastic, giving you all these different challenges to complete to earn your Nook Miles. First thing I did, obviously, was get up to my 5,000 to pay off my tent.
I did that.
Yeah, so once you do that, then you get your house, and Nook gives you more. Basically, it opens up more things for you to purchase and get the ball rolling as far as getting more tools. They have the vaulting pole, which lets you cross rivers without there being a bridge. There's like a ton of really, really good. They do the right thing of just dropping in new gear every once in a while to keep you like, oh man, look, now I can do this, now I can do that. The one thing that I don't love is the fact that so I don't know if either of you guys have done this yet, but you can spend 2,000 Nook Miles to go to a random island.
No.
Have you guys done this? No.
I haven't done it, but he's told me about it.
So if you spend the 2,000 miles and go to this random island, he basically is like, hey, you lay waste, harvest everything, chop down all the trees, break all the rocks, catch all the bugs, catch all the fish, and then get out. No one's gonna care because no one lives there. And it's like, that's really fucked up, but it works well in this game. It's just like a weird, hey, go here and take everything. Nobody's gonna worry about it. It's just such a strange thing for this kind of game. But especially because they're all about they're all about renewable resources, right? You first time you fish up a boot or a tire, it's like, hey, wait a second, I could use this boot. If I find one more, I can recycle and make a nice pair of boots. And then you're, planting trees that you can shake and get fruit from every day, whatever. It's just interesting to have this game allow you to just go lay waste to an island. It's kind of fucked. But absolutely everything about this game, other than that, is just incredible. I won't spoil the museum stuff, but once that museum is in full swing, you guys got to report back on how incredible it is, because this game is gorgeous, number one, but holy shit, the level of detail they put into this museum is insane.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward.
Oh, it's going to be, you guys are going to love it.
Yeah, I'm loving it, right? Seriously, I feel like this is one of those games that whenever I have a stressful day at work or whatever, I'm just going to come home and just
oh yeah,
that's Animal Crossing, and it's perfect. It's just perfect.
It's perfect for that. Yeah, it really is. And it's hitting all the right notes of what I love about Animal Crossing, and then adding in the new stuff of because the famous Animal Crossing thing is, all right, I kind of did everything for the day, now I'm done. And the nice thing about this game is you definitely can be done, and then just wait till tomorrow and more will happen. But because of the Nook Miles challenges, you always have stuff that you're shooting for. So it's like, if I catch 3 more fish, then I'll get 300 miles from this.
Right.
Like, it's a big, giant list of challenges that basically encompasses everything that you're doing. Like, literally selling weeds to the store is one of the Nook Miles challenges. Like, it's just such a smart thing of like just keeping it going for as much as you want to do. It's just so good and so satisfying. Obviously Nintendo's still weird about online as usual, but I was able to go into my dad's town and he can come to mine, and 2 people running around in the same town at the same time is pretty cool thing. That feels great to finally be able to do.
What does your dad think? I know that's like your dad's favorite game ever. What
It is.
What's your dad's opinion on the new one?
He's absolutely loving it. It took him a little bit to get to understand what the Nook Miles are and like how to cash them in and stuff like that, because that's all new.
Right.
But now that he's got the ball rolling, he's loving it.
Just love knowing that in the world your dad is playing Animal Crossing. It just makes me happy.
It makes him very happy too. But yeah, I just I have great things to say about this game through and through. I think it's like just so satisfying doing everything on this island. And it feels like, so normally you go into these towns, it's not an island usually, and there's already like a town hall, the museum's already there, the store's already there. In this, it's like, it feels like you're building up your town from scratch. Like you are putting in, I don't know if you guys...
Nothing. Yeah, there's nothing in the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have talked to Timmy and Tommy about like giving them materials to build a store, but they literally ask for like a certain amount of wood and a certain amount of ore and whatever, and then when you give it to them, then they're able to open up a town shop. And like it just feels so satisfying to be like, oh, I am giving all these reasons, like I'm building this, I'm helping with this, you know what I mean? Like it's awesome.
Yeah, nice. What do they ask for? Like, they just ask for the material and then they go build it for you, basically. And
yep, exactly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, once you talk to them, probably next time you guys play, you'll be able to talk to them. They want like 30 of each kind of wood and 30 ore, and then they'll build up the shop, and it's just so cool. Like it's super good. I don't have many complaints about it. It's, again, I mean, these games have never been like nice looking, but this one is so pretty.
Gorgeous.
Like
Gorgeous.
the way the trees move and the way the water looks, the beaches and everything. I just love it. It's so good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
the music's
again,
better than ever.
I've never played any of them, so I have no comparisons. But
what are you thinking so far?
I mean, it's great so far. I didn't know what kind of game it was. I just know that I had a ton of Nintendo points saved up, so I got it for like $30.
Nice.
But I was like, yeah, let me dive into it, and it's cool. I mean, I'm totally an upgrade kind of game person, like I love that shit. I'll grind all day, for that stuff. So it's fun to do. I did reach that point kind of last night where I was kind of playing late last night, and I was like, all right, I kind of don't have anything to do. I just got to wait
until tomorrow
for this, which is good. It makes you kind of.
It is good, and it's so funny.
Every day, and you don't have to sit there and play for hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had so many friends that like this is their first Animal Crossing reach out and be like, so like how do I move time forward? And it's like,
yeah, you probably can. You can probably change shit on your
but
Nintendo,
what they mean,
but why do that?
Yeah, so like you can do that if you want to do that, but that's not what this game is meant to be. Like they're thinking of like a Stardew Valley or like a Harvest Moon where it's like, oh, I want tomorrow to come. How do I make tomorrow come? It's like, well, go to sleep. And then tomorrow's here. Like that's what this game is, and there's kind of a beauty to that because of like what games are nowadays, where it's like you're like you can play a game for like 20 hours and just get everything out of it and be done. Yeah. This game is asking you to just like take your time and let it happen.
Like it.
And it's pretty cool.
I love that about it.
Yeah, and you guys are both enjoying it so far?
Oh my gosh, absolutely loving it. I want to go. I want to go more now.
I know you guys gotta send me your friend codes so that we can visit each other's islands.
Yeah, I should be playing it now while we do our podcast. I could simultaneously play and
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about Animal Crossing New Horizons. I don't know if
I'm
you guys
excited.
have anything.
I'll definitely have more to add. Next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. So I think that's it. I know we talked a lot about games because there were a ton of them to talk about. We just have a couple of things to hit here. I'll just say off the bat, obviously, last time we left off, it was nebulous whether E3 was going to be canceled or not. Obviously, a lot changes in 2 weeks, and not only is E3 canceled, but everything's canceled because we're on a lockdown.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So doesn't look like much is going to be happening. And I just kind of wanted to talk about not only, so for me, initially, a week and a half ago when E3 got canceled, I was like, ooh, this would be a good topic to talk about. Now it's more, so number one, I want to just talk about, hey, I said before, if E3 gets canceled, I don't think there ever will be another E3. And I kind of meant it because I think people are going to host their own press conferences, like big publishers. And then they're going to say, wait, why do we need E3? And I think E3 was already transforming into a more like consumer focused thing where it wasn't, people, Sony who dropped out, like they were losing people. And it was more about, hey, you want to be here for the experiences and blah, 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 whatever. But I think all this press conference stuff is done with E3. I think people are going to be doing their own press conferences, do it more like Nintendo Direct style. Like, I think that's the future of where this is. And I know we've talked before, the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley did that thing where he got a bunch of indie devs to put out like some demos. Remember, I played a bunch of demos in December. Yeah, and I think that is where the future is for these festivals, and the independent press conferences being streamed out is the future for the press conferences. So that's why I looked at E3 and I was like, why? This feels so antiquated.
Yeah.
So I think this will be the final straw to say, okay, maybe E3 is not dead, but it's going to come back as a completely different thing. I think it's not going to be a big games where everything gets announced and all the publishers are there. I think that's done. This is going to be the time where all the publishers get together and say, wait, we don't need to do this. Yeah. Because they use so much resources, so much money and time spent planning all that shit. So piggybacking on this, I just kind of wanted to because I'm starting to think about, obviously, the coronavirus stuff that's going on. I'm starting to wonder like what that's gonna do to the release schedule for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it might push everything off because you can't. Right. GameStop's closed. Everything's closed.
Yeah, but less about that and more about these companies aren't working.
Yeah.
Or like how much can they do from home? Or that's what I don't know. So I'm very curious to see. I think The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be the interesting, like, kind of trendsetter. If that one gets pushed back and they say, hey, we couldn't finish working on it, so we're going to push it back until we're done, then I think everyone's going to kind of follow suit. I think the games that are already done, like Final Fantasy VII Remake, that won't be affected. Obviously, that's a couple weeks. It's already gone gold. Obviously, the physical distribution chain is screwed up, but as far as digitally, that's not going to be an issue. Yeah. And the same thing with Resident Evil 3 Remake. I'm sure that'll be fine. But out from there, I'm very, very curious. Like what these big budget, big team size games are looking like. And obviously this isn't everyone's main priority. It's just we're talking about video games, so yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
No, it's true. I mean, and a few of these games have been pushed back this year already.
Right.
To make sure that they're good to go. And honestly, in my opinion, like if the people can't work on them, and don't rush it. Like, don't
Right.
rush these games. Like Cyberpunk, Last of Us, put it out when it's ready. I'll wait. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I really hope that they don't say come back in a month or two and be like, all right, shit, we can push it back a week, but we have a month of work to like make up on. And I really hope they don't do that, you know?
Because then it just creates the crunch environment that's so destructive.
Yeah.
And we don't want that, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm just very, very curious to see what basically comes out of this, because nobody knows exactly how long things are going to be shut down for. But I'm starting to think May is going to be the earliest that anyone can be working. So that poses an interesting issue with The Last of Us, and then subsequent releases from there.
For sure. And I know that as far as releases with like movies, like theaters are down, like they're releasing video on demand right now. Every movie that's already or was going to theaters is going to demand.
Right.
You know?
And also movies that were planning on coming out like relatively soon are like pushing way back.
Yeah, pushing way back. Movies that aren't even
Bond movie and the Fast and Furious movie, they were both pushed back like a year.
Yeah, that's rough.
Just because they don't want to release to an empty theater. It's not that their production is done. They just
they're there to make money in the box office, and if the box office ain't there, that sucks.
Quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously bigger things to worry about in the grand scheme of things. I just thought it was interesting to discuss.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the last thing I have is Mark Cerny and Sony put out a video that was supposed to be their GDC talk about PlayStation 5.
The spec talk.
Yeah, and this was an interesting one because it was super fucking nerdy and crazy, and nobody understood what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But people need to remember that this was supposed to be a GDC talk, and it's supposed to be for developers primarily. So that's why it was so they got in the weeds with it. But I do have the specs here, and basically Jeff Grubb over at VentureBeat put up a comparison, Xbox Series X to PlayStation 5, the specs. So I'm just going to kind of go through, and again, I think people that are smarter than me can decipher this information a little better than me. I'm just going to talk raw comparison, and then a little bit I'll summarize what Jeff Grubb here is saying. So Xbox is going to be the first one I'm going to list, and then PlayStation is going to be the second. So the Series X, CPU, 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.8 gigahertz. And the PlayStation is 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz. The Xbox is 12 teraflops. And basically they are, a lot of this stuff is very, people that know PCs know this a lot more because that's literally what we're looking at here. And PlayStation is 10.28 teraflops. Memory, pretty much the same, 16 gigs with GDDR6. Bandwidth, they're looking at with 10 gigs, 560 gigabytes per second, whereas the PlayStation's 448, but they're going to remain stable. Whereas the Xbox, depending on where it's at 6 gigs, it'll actually be lower. At 10, it'll be higher. The internal storage are both using SSDs. The Xbox is 1 terabyte, and the PlayStation 5 is going to be at 825 gig SSD. But they said straight up that the PlayStation, they're gonna put out like a whitelist of what SSDs are going to be compatible with that system. Whereas Microsoft said basically, we'll have like Microsoft approved SSDs if you want to upgrade. So the one that comes with the PlayStation is a little bit small, 825 gigs. And then you think about maybe 100 gigs of that or so will be for the operating system. So we're looking at maybe around 700 gigs storage. So it's a bit small. But obviously the SSD versus the hard drive disk is a big difference that's a major difference as far as the loading times of what they're talking about. Obviously, those of us that are on PC, most people have SSDs now because it really makes a gigantic difference. I think about, I haven't played Doom Eternal on a console, but the load times are like a second and a half to load in a level on my SSD on my PC. So like, it's really such a big difference. I recently was, I played like an hour of Bloodborne recently, just like mess around with it, and I was like, wow, these load times were long, huh? And you don't like think about it until you have something with an SSD and you're like, oh, this is like game changing. So the fact that these consoles are going to have it is pretty great.
Cool.
Something Cerny talked about is that IO throughput, that raw throughput. The Xbox is maxing at 4.8, and the PlayStation is going 5.5 gigabytes per second for the throughput for the raw, whereas the raw for the Xbox is actually only 2.4. The compressed is 4.8. So this is where PlayStation is saying this is their game changer. This is why they are going to be so much better than the Xbox, because otherwise it's pretty similar, a little bit more teraflops in the Xbox. But yeah, that's the majority of it, and then I'll read a little bit of what Jeff was saying. I'll just go through a little bit to make a little sense of it. As far as the GPU comparison, the Xbox should run games at a bit of a higher resolution and a higher frame rate, but the PS5 is still a very high, 2.23 gigahertz. That's a high GPU, so it's still very, very good. The CPU is a little bit slower clock speed on the PS5 than the Xbox, but that's not really that big of a difference. Then the throughput is the big thing that I mentioned before. PlayStation 5 has a huge advantage over the throughput, which basically means that you're streaming in data at a faster rate. So what they're talking about is like, the cracks in the wall, the famous cracks in the wall in Uncharted and Tomb Raider and Jedi. Hey, here's this crack in the wall that you're going to shimmy your way through. And in the background, what's happening is the textures are loading in and everything's like getting ready since it's one open map, right? So they don't want you to see everything loading in. So what that throughput is saying is that at a higher rate, those are going to, like, they're going to be able to stream in a larger amount of information per second. So literally just turning your back to it and turning back, it'll be there. So like games are going to be built differently where they're basically going to cut all that out of it. Like no more Mass Effect elevators, no more cracks in the wall, like that's a major thing that Mark Cerny was talking about, where like, hey, this throughput is an absolute game changer because the whole level can be in, like just there. Whereas it used to have to be made into chunks where it would be streamed in and then the stuff behind you can get streamed out so that the system can run, Yeah. I know we're getting deep in on this, but it's pretty interesting stuff whether you know much about it or not. But really, when the time comes for the consoles to come out, that's where the majority of us will notice the difference.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be an exciting thing to see,
Yeah, and I am very curious, since Microsoft has been putting all of their exclusives on PC, I'm very curious to see what their console sales look like, because if anyone out there is in a similar boat to where I'm at, I don't need an Xbox Series X because I have this PC that runs all of those Microsoft games really well. So the PS5 looks like the one that I'm getting because they will have actual exclusives. And that's an interesting question, is like, how much does that matter to Microsoft?
Yeah.
Like, do they care, or are they just happy that you're getting their games and playing their games?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I guess it comes down to Well, I mean, is that going to affect the price of their Xbox as well if they're anticipating something like that?
Yeah, I am very curious what the prices are going to be here. I am hearing from people like 500 is going to be that sweet spot where people will still buy it, but they need it to be more than 400,
right?
In order
to be profitable,
to make this like anything, yeah. In order to not lose money. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to wrap up this episode, unless anyone has anything to add about all that. Really, really, I'm sure very interesting talk about the specs. You guys got anything to add, or you think we're good?
I think that's pretty good.
Listen, most importantly, just want everybody to stay safe, stay healthy.
Yep. Always good advice in general, especially now.
Just keep on playing our games.
Yeah. A lot more. I see a lot more Animal Crossing in our future.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure, man, for sure.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Dan, thanks as always.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Shelby, thank you.
Of course, thanks.
And thank you guys so much for listening. Apologies again if there's any choppiness or any sort of awkward silences, but this is the nature of what we're dealing with right now.
Doing our best, all right?
We're doing our best. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, peace. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching and or listening. Just here to remind you that you can find us by searching for Circle Back Podcast or Circle Back Gaming on any of these podcast services: Anchor, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, or Stitcher. By God, I'm out of breath because of all these podcast services, but you can find us anywhere there. Also, you can find our video version on YouTube by searching Circle Back Podcast or Circle Back Gaming, and the rest of the videos we do. Thanks, guys.